Well, hello, everyone. This is a follow-up from the LP News February 72. There was a little column that I thought it was getting a bit too long, and I said I would do that as an additional episode. And from what I understand, this is a little political satire regarding Richard Nixon. Again, because we're talking 1972. And boy, this is tiny writing, and I forgot to bring my magnifying glass, but we'll do it. So the column is called Political Perspective, written by I, Tricky Dick, and Honest John. And bear with me with this tiny lettering. All right. By the time this newsletter reaches you, deceitful Dick Nixon will be about to embark on his pilgrimage to Peking, where presumably he will commune with his spiritual brethren, the masters of the largest slave labor camp on earth. Meanwhile, back in New Hampshire, Congressmen Ashbrook and McCloskey will be out pounding the campaign trail in a futile attempt to convince Granite State Republicans that the one-time Wheel of Fortune barker for Prescott, Arizona's Slippery Gulch Rodeo, should be denied renomination for the presidency. Nixon's perfidy needs no elaboration. Anyone who still thinks that rascally Richard offers any hope to libertarians is simply retarded. Pardon me. I know that's not a word we use nowadays, but that's what's in here. Makes me a little uncomfortable, I do admit. But what of Ashbrook and McCloskey? Is there any chance that, as a few people have suggested, libertarians can form an alliance with either of these gentlemen? Let us first consider Mr. McCloskey. McCloskey is, for the most part, a one-issue candidate, and his one issue, the Indochina War, is becoming less important every day. On other issues, McCloskey is a moderate quote-unquote liberal. The semi-socialist ADA gives him a rating of 55, while the moderate conservative ACA gives him a 41, and the hardline conservative Review of the News gives him a 21. In sum, McCloskey is no better than Nixon. Furthermore, his chances of accomplishing anything are almost nil. If he receives more than 10% of the vote in New Hampshire, it will be a miracle, and it is unlikely that he will remain in the contest for the GOP nomination beyond March or April. Thus, there is no reason, either moral or strategic, for libertarians to become involved with McCloskey. Ashbrook, in contrast, is at least superficially appealing on several counts. His record in the area of economic issues is good. ADA 0, ACA 98, RN 94. On civil liberties issues, he is no worse than most and better than many. And on foreign policy, he's fair. I lost my spot. And on foreign policy, he's fair. For a strong domestic defense system, but too interventionist to qualify as a true libertarian. All in all, Ashbrook would have to be rated as a fair to good, although perhaps more on the fair end of the range. To his credit, however, is the fact that he is one of the very few Republican congressmen who has openly condemned Nixon, and for the right reasons and in no uncertain terms. It is a sad commentary on the current state of affairs that Ashbrook, with all of his drawbacks, is one of the best members of the House of Representatives. Oh, I almost said representatives. It says House of Reprehensibles. I love it. Nonetheless, this is the case. And the fact that it is so has caused a few LP members to suggest that we might be well advised to abandon our plans to run our own presidential candidate and throw in with Ashbrook instead. Nothing ever changes, does it? Unfortunately, there are several drawbacks to this approach. First and most important, there is very little chance that Ashbrook will be able to topple Nixon. It is certainly not beyond the realm of possibility that Ashbrook can make a respectable showing in the GOP primaries, perhaps even to the extent of drawing 30% of the vote. However, even assuming that he does this well, what will he accomplish? At most, he might force Nixon to withdraw. If this happens, and it seems unlikely that a power freak like Milhouse voluntarily give up the throne, the best one could hope for is that the GOP will nominate someone like Ronald Reagan, who is no prize to begin with. and who would have to make so many concessions to the liberals to assure party unity that the net result would be totally unacceptable to libertarians, e.g. a Reagan-Rockefeller ticket with Nixon as Secretary of State. More likely, a strong showing for Ashbrook will simply prompt the great deceiver to make a few minor concessions to the National Review crowd, like pledge to keep Spiro the zero on the ticket and to push for more spending in the area of defense. Promises like these are hardly the stuff of which libertarian dreams are made, and even if they were, there is no assurance that Richard the Lion-hearted, Lion, Lyin, would keep them. And once reelected, the only promise he could be held to would be that of keeping Agnew as VP. Thus, there is little to be gained by throwing in with Ashbrook. On a long-range basis, unless he indicates unequivocally that he will carry his challenge to Nixon into the general election in November if Nixon is renominated, and even then there is considerable doubt that libertarians would be wise to do so. It is hard to imagine Ashbrook enduring even 50% of the planks in our platform, and unless he were willing to do this, we could not legitimately endorse him. Therefore, in this writer's opinion, our best strategy vis-a-vis Ashbrook is the following. Those LP members who are inspired to work for Mr. Ashbrook between now and June, simply to embarrass and harass deceitful Dick, should feel free to do so. At the Libertarian Party convention in June, a resolution can be introduced stating that the LP will withdraw its own candidates and endorse Ashbrook if and only if Ashbrook continues his challenge to Nixon after the GOP convention and openly, publicly endorse at least 50% or more of the planks in our official platform as adopted at the convention. Whether or not this resolution passes will, of course, depend on the judgment of the convention delegates. In the meantime, we should proceed full steam ahead with our efforts at creating an effective LP organization nationwide so that when Ashbrook bows out and endorses Nixon, as he is almost certain to do, there will be someone for Ashbrook supporters to turn to. And then it says, note, in future issues, we will deal with other political developments as they occur. For this reason, the March issue will be published approximately 1 week late in order to allow us to comment on the results of the New Hampshire and Florida primaries. Glad we did not bow into that pressure. And at the June convention, what was passed in our bylaws was for us to exist as a distinct and separate political movement, not merely as some kind of arm for the GOP also-rans. Have a good night. Mi guapas de libertad.
You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians or choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business, not because they want to